Hello and welcome to our weekly talk show, The Interview, and our special segment on the civil services. From a cop's uniform to being a writer, from exposing the scams in the cricket world to investigating bomb blast cases, Neeraj Kumar has done it all. We take him through his journey of policing and writing as we decode the 5 Ws in this edition of our weekly talk show, The Interview, in our special segment on the civil services. Welcome to the show, Mr. Neeraj Kumar, and thank you for being here with us.
Pleasure is mine.
Let me begin with from wielding the baton as a police officer to the pen. How does it work?
So far, it has worked very well. I have been able to tell my stories, which are aplenty. So, my first two books are about the operations that I did while I was in the CBI. That is in the first book. And the second book are assorted stories about investigations from my various assignments. And the third book was about cricket. So I had 3 years of experience in working as the head of the anti-corruption unit in the BCCI. And the experiences were very interesting. And also at some level, they were personally, they were a little hurting.
Before we come to the BCCI, which of course has been a controversial book, let me ask you, don't you miss the uniform and don't you miss the baton and perhaps cracking the whip, if I may use the term?
Not cracking the whip so much as the uniform. And my recurring dream till today is that I've turned up somewhere in my uniform and suddenly I realized that, well, I have been retired for almost 10 years now and I have no right to wear the uniform. And yet I am wearing it. And surprisingly, I find that people around are not objecting. So I miss the uniform. Not the baton and not the whip.
Why not the baton and the whip? Because that is really a trademark of a police officer.
No, I enjoyed investigations the most. I enjoyed visiting scenes of crime, solving mysteries, working on every little lead and taking them to their logical conclusion, or carrying out operations while I was in the CBI primarily. Against gangsters. Yes, baton and whip are part of the job, but they were not so important to me.
One of your colleagues, who I interviewed a few weeks earlier, said that those who make it to the top do it because they succumb to political pressure. You retired as Commissioner of Police Delhi and you, in that sense, made it to the top. What would you say to that? Though I do remember an incident where you were one of the few who fought, and I'll use the word fought, with Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was then Prime Minister.
I don't quite agree with my colleague who said that, because my experience has been totally different. Most people who have made it to the top have done so because of the merits, their personal merits, and not because of their political connections or so on.
And your argument with Dr. Manmohan Singh?
Well, that was because I had not been impaneled for the directorship of the CBI, And I went and told him that, sir, you are well within your rights. The government is well within its rights not to make me the director because I am not the senior most. But how can you not keep me on the panel? And I went to the extent of telling him that, sir, but if you wait for the file to come to you, it would be too late because some decision would already have been taken. So that was the gist of my meeting with him when I was left out of the panel for directorship of the CBI. So though I was not included in the panel, I had the satisfaction of bringing the matter to the notice of the Prime Minister.
Satisfaction or guts? Because now you do not have political bosses who would probably be accessible, or civil servants who would go up and raise such issues.
It's unthinkable under the present circumstances that somebody can go and confront the highest executive in the land and say that, well, you have not done the right thing.
Coming back to the BCCI, which you mentioned, you have said that you faced humiliation from the officials. Take me through that period and some incidents.
It's like this, Kumkum, that I joined the BCCI in a certain context. This was in the wake of the 2013 spot fixing case, which was cracked by the Delhi police under my leadership in May 2013, which sent shock waves not only in the country but across the cricketing world. The top brass of the BCCI was sent packing. Corruption in cricket was seemed to be on top of the agenda. And at that point of time, I was selected and sent there as the head of the anti-corruption unit. So I thought that I have been handpicked to go there and set the house in order. But to my horror, I saw that nobody wanted any interaction with me. Nobody would invite me for any conversations. There were no discussions on how to fight the spectre of corruption. And I was largely ignored. This itself was very humiliating. Then there were small things like I had a very well-appointed office that was taken away from me. Then there was several small incidents when I felt quite slighted. And the most hurting was that in the middle of the Champions Trophy tour of England, I was told that I should leave England because my tour had been sanctioned only till that particular day and that I was overstaying my sanctioned tour.
I was, you have said, and let me quote you, appalled at the stories I heard from players in small venues. Tell me some of the horrible ones.
Quite a few of them told me that they would be asked for sexual favors. Even boys, young boys, would be asked for sexual favors by the coaches that if they wanted to be selected for a certain team. To my horror, there were also complaints that the young cricketers' mothers were asked for sexual favors. Mothers who would accompany the youngsters to the practice ground. So these were very, very shocking. Then also shocking were reports that office bearers of certain state associations would ask the players to abide by a pre-scripted match which was being played. Which means that if a private league match is being played, it would be conveyed to you that in the 7th over, you will bowl 3 wides or you will not score more than 30 runs and so on and so forth. And also instructions would be reached to you while the match was in progress, and that too through the umpires, umpires would be conveyed the instructions from the office bearers on walkie-talkie that tell the bowler to throw a no ball at this stage, or convey to the wicket keeper not to stump the batsman, and so on and so forth.
Talking of sexual favors, talking of sexual harassment, what is your take on the current situation of sports persons taking to the streets and talking and alleging the same things which you found several years ago?
My sympathies are totally with the wrestlers. More so because I have investigated a certain case during my CBI days against the Wrestling Federation of India chief, where I know what the accusations were and also about his linkages with antisocial elements. I know about the person and about his past and also his present, and therefore I am inclined to lay credence to what the wrestlers are alleging.
As former chief advisor, BCCI, take us through the murky world of cricket and sports. That, of course, is also the subject of your latest book.
If you talk to an average lover of cricket, he is interested that an IPL match or an international match should be absolutely above board. But what an average sports lover doesn't realize that there is an entire ecosystem besides the top level of the sport, which means right from the beginning, when a talented sports person is coming up, what is the ecosystem he has to go through? He grows in. At every level, there are demands of bribes for selection and an extra favor if you want to make it to the top. And they come through very grinding conditions where there are people who are looking to spot them and groom them, by which I mean that somebody sees a very talented batsman and he sees that he's playing without shoes. So that person just goes and says, "Son, I want to buy you a pair of shoes." And that man would only welcome that favor. And then he gives him some more money, which will come in very handy for that poor man. But in the bargain, what he doesn't realize, that he has in a way been bought by that man. He's giving all those favors with a purpose in mind, a long-term purpose, which is that at a later stage, he would ask him to do something which will not be kosher. I'm giving you the details of an actual case. This actual case is that of Ajay Sharma, a Delhi cricketer who was approached by a man called M.K. Gupta, about whom I have written my book. And he groomed Ajay Sharma, and Ajay Sharma did rise and he made it to the Indian national team, went to New Zealand with the national team, from where he gave inside information to MK, based on which he won a huge amount of money in various bets. Players who come up through very grinding and very impoverished conditions, they are likely to be compromised.
On a different track, you introduced free eye cams for truck drivers. What was your motivation and why?
So I was the DCP traffic, and I realized that truck drivers, once they were given a license, their health conditions were never reviewed, whether they were fit enough to drive a truck. So as an experiment, I got their eyes tested, and the results were horrific. Quite a few of them were nearly blind, and they were driving. Quite a few of them had cataract and were yet driving. Quite a few of them suffered from night blindness and were yet driving. So then we help them get themselves treated, and the results were very salutary. The accident rates where trucks were involved suddenly dropped.
You have investigated several cases of terrorism, including the Mumbai blast case. Tell me about that. Take me through that.
The Mumbai bomb blast of 1993, should I will not be wrong in saying that they were as important to our country as 9/11 uh, was to the US or to the world. Initially, the Mumbai police investigated the case, and then in November of 1993, the case was transferred to the CBI. And there were a number of absconders who were very difficult to get. Investigating the case was extremely challenging because the initial work had already been done by the Mumbai police. We had to wrap up the investigations, we had to arrest the absconders, and we had to make sure that the case was watertight, and more importantly, we managed to get high profile, high value absconders like the Memons from Pakistan.
Yeah, arresting the Memon family, I was just coming to that. Tell me about that. How tough was it? What were the roadblocks?
See, we arrested Yaqub Memon when he tried to sneak into India through Nepal. And when we interrogated him, he informed us that as soon as the news of his arrest would have reached his family members in Pakistan, almost all of them would have escaped out of, run away from Pakistan, because they would have feared persecution by the Pakistani authorities. And Yaqub informed us that in all likelihood, they would have escaped to Dubai. So he told us that they would only be too happy to come to India because they were not very happy in Pakistan. And somebody had to trace them, convince them to come. A cousin of Yaqub was motivated and persuaded to go to Dubai and trace them, trace the Memons, because he knew the likely places where they would go and hide. So it was a cat and mouse game between us and the CBI and the ISI. So it was a very challenging operation.
Did you have sleepless nights?
Oh, plenty. And also, when finally the Memons arrived, that I consider one of my, say, top 4 or 5 moments of my career.
Was your family worried for you?
They have been worried of a variety of reasons. From whenever I take up any dangerous assignment, they obviously get very worried.
You know, from there, you have also investigated economic offences. Who are the well known offenders you have nabbed?
Oh, there have been quite a few. There have been quite a few. Uh, there was an income tax officer whom we arrested, who was a terror when he was on deputation with the ED. There was Captain Satish Sharma.
Tell me about Captain Satish Sharma.
Captain Satish Sharma had, if you recall, had made a number of petrol pump allotments, largely in UP, which was his constituency also.
Amethi.
Yeah, without following the rules and virtually throwing the rules to the winds. So we went into each allotment separately and found that all the rules were violated, and things were done in a very arbitrary manner. And he was questioned, he was searched, and we prepared the charge sheet, and we requested for sanction for prosecution, which never came. And in fact, you would be very interested to know that he would come and tell us. He would say, "Tell me, the DIG साहब, आप try कर लीजिए, आपको sanction नहीं मिलेगी." He was that confident. Why sanction nahi milegi? Because the president of the country was from his party. So the government processed the case. They found it to be a fit case for grant of sanction, but when it went to the president, the sanction was not granted. So that was a great letdown for us.
Finally, what are the lessons learned and unlearned in and out of uniform?
Of course, the lessons learned while in uniform is primarily the huge opportunity that the uniform gives you to do good, to do good to people, to do good to the society, and to serve. Once you are out of the police, you gradually learn, you become a common citizen, you see the seamy side of the uniform and you see the seamy side of the police.
And the lessons unlearned?
The lessons unlearned are that you should be always prepared to look inwards, and your force, your own people are not as holy as you consider them to be.
Mr. Neeraj Kumar, thank you very much. Thank you for your time and thank you for taking all the questions.
It has been a real pleasure talking to you, Kumkum.